Thanks for coming to my talk, everyone, and thanks for voting for me. As Elle mentioned, my name is Liz. I am a UX designer at Insight, and I'm here to talk to you today about product owners and how to work with them when they're a little bit indecisive. So I've got 3 specific tools to hopefully show you today that you can walk out of here with. But before that, a bit of introducing myself, if this lets me. So that's apparently me in my day-to-day life. I like working out, I like using and designing apps, I like my coffee, and I also like checklists because I'm a very organized person. As mentioned, I'm a designer, but I've worked as a product owner myself. I've worked with a lot of different product owners from different backgrounds and industries. So from that experience, obviously, I've learned a lot about how important of a role that is, and therefore how challenging it is. So I'm here to share with you some techniques when working with product owners. Before I go into those techniques and show you how and when to use them, I thought we'd start off with a little bit of a story, because who doesn't like story time? So a couple of years ago, someone in my organization came up to me and was like, "Hey Liz, I've got such a cool idea. You know how it's really shitty right now for people to be onboarded into our organization? What if we made an app that changed the world, that changed their experience, that made it super streamlined and easy for them to do this?" And I was on board, right? We talked about the app, what could go into it, why we were doing this. We all got excited. And it kind of felt like this. It was, why hadn't we thought of this before? Why doesn't this already exist? And we were in this place of getting super, super excited and ready to start, right? So we did just that. We started some user research, spoke to potential customers, spoke to subject matter experts involved in the onboarding experience, gathered a lot of insights, right? So this is what we felt like. We had so many cool ideas, let's get started. And it was exciting. So things progressed. We got a team resource, we got budget, what have you. We looked at the product owner and we said, where do we start? Let's begin, shall we? How do we begin? We looked at the product owner and this is what kind of felt like. It was a bit of, I don't know where to start, or pointing the finger back at myself. Where do you think we should start? Obviously, as designers, we get this a lot in that we wear multiple hats, right? We're expected to fill the product owner role sometimes. And I've definitely fallen into that trap many times before. So this is sort of what it felt like at that time. And I'm sure many of you have either seen this or felt this yourself. So if you have ever seen this, I hope the rest of the talk is useful for you. So who is this talk for? You might be a product owner yourself. This is not a product owners suck talk. It's a product owners are important talk. And they're important, and it's super challenging to be in that position, right? So you might be a product owner yourself. You might be a BA. You might be a designer, a project manager, developer, or even a salesperson working with a product owner, right? So even if maybe you haven't come across this in your day-to-day, I really hope you take something away from it. And what you'll learn is strategies to empower your product owner to make better decisions. And as mentioned, right, you're not necessarily empowering someone else, but hopefully some of these strategies you can use for yourself in your work or your day-to-day life as well. So what does a product owner do? This is our agenda for today. What challenges do they face, and how do we overcome these challenges using the tools and techniques that I'll share with you today? So here's just a list of high level what a product owner does. They define the vision, they manage the backlog, prioritize needs, and that's not only customer and user needs, but also the business. Other areas of the business, strategic value as well. They oversee development, and they also have to anticipate needs. So that obviously ties in with the backlog and the roadmap side of things too. So what makes it so challenging and therefore really, really important, right? So there are many challenges, but for the purpose of this talk, I want to focus on 3 things because we'll go into these 3 things in a little bit more detail. And what I'll do is I'll give you a tool to tackle each of these 3 challenges. So the first one is they have to manage expectations when everyone seems to want to be involved. Everyone has an opinion, everyone wants to share this opinion, and obviously the product owner is the face to accept all of that, or not to accept all of it. Second one is they need to manage the backlog when everything seems to be a must-have. How the hell are you meant to do that when everyone is saying everything is equally important? And the last one is prioritize needs when they're all competing against each other. So I'm sure people in this room can relate to this from a product owner sort of perspective. If not, you would have seen it as a designer working with a product owner. So as mentioned, the rest of the session, I'm essentially going to go through each of these 3 and give you a specific tool to help with that challenge. First one being a tool for managing expectations. This isn't so much a prioritization tool, so sorry for the clickbait, but the first one is around managing expectations. And I actually learned about this from Cornell at DDD, so thank you for the content. But the feature tree is a tool that I've used a few times now, and it's very, very effective in keeping people just up to date and to help people feel heard as well. So what a feature tree hopefully helps with is the following. So a product owner tends to feel pressure to show progress, right? What's been done so far? Are you meeting goals? What's happening? And pressure to please as well. So it's, when is my thing going to be done, right? That's, classic, you have a sprint review and someone in there from the business is like, hey, what about my thing that I raised with you 2 weeks ago? Is that going to be done soon? So it's a lot of people pleasing, which will be our block note today. But it's answering those questions and that pressure around getting stuff done. So I'll show you a snippet of what a feature tree looks like, and you can actually Google this. It's UpBank's feature tree. It's essentially a breakdown of the features and the roadmap, or the backlog, if you will. So it divides your product into, you could do epics or high-level initiatives. And under each of these branches, you have your individual features that are in your pipeline. So maybe you're in your first quarter, you've done a couple of them, but now you have more to go. This is a very effective and simple way to share with your stakeholders, your wider audience, of how things are progressing so far. This is a little bit difficult to see. So I've created a not as cool one, but an interactive one that you can play with in Miro. This is a simple version that I've used recently with a client. So you can break down your product into epics or initiatives and have feature down each epic and color code based on things that are done, things that are in progress, or things left to do. Simple snapshot, but a very effective way for people to see what is going to come next. You can play around with this a little bit as well. So what I've done is, for example, I've drawn a red line horizontally to show quarter 1, quarter 2, or release 1, release 2, release 3. And that way, it's a way to, I guess, answer the questions before they're asked, right? So before someone says, when is this going to be done, it's already answered in front of you. And the beauty about this is, sure, you can present it in a sprint review, but you could also have it as a working document as a point of reference. So here's a link. Look at the link instead of asking me all these questions. Yeah. So some benefits and considerations with this one, with the feature tree. It's a really good way, a visual way to show progress. Reminds people of how much you really do. I think this is sometimes forgotten with, it tends to be dismissed and put under the carpet a little bit in terms of, our team actually do so much. And it's a good way to showcase that and to remind people about that, right? It can be used to capture priorities and release plans, like I mentioned with the lines. Considerations, in all of these, I want you to know any downfalls or things to keep in mind if you were to use some of these tools. It can be overwhelming if too much detail, and could be potentially annoying to maintain if you start off with too much detail. Cool, so that's our first tool or technique. 2 more to go. Next one is literally my favorite thing to use. I've used it a lot, and I've always seen great outcomes with this, and I try to mix it up as well. It's called the $100 investment. It's a tool for prioritization. For each tool, as mentioned, I'll raise some context as to why I'm introducing this tool. Product owners feel pressure to make decisions. What's most important? And they also have pressure to compare. Which one is really more of a must-have between the 2 must-haves? So as a product owner, how are you meant to make these decisions? So the tool I'm going to share with you is something I've used as a designer with my product owner to help them make these priority decisions. And what it looks like is you pose a question to them around how much would you invest into the Boorloo. If I gave you $100 to invest into this list of features, how would you spend your money? So I've listed 5 features here. And if you ask them in this question, it makes them really think. Obviously, it's like, oh, it's my money. I have to spend it in a way that aligns to how I want to spend it. And it makes them think about how they split the money as well. So here's just an example of how a product owner might answer that question. We've got 50, 20, 10, 5, 5. I'm really hoping that equals 100. If not, oh well. Essentially, the beauty of this, right? Does it not? It doesn't? Clearly, I got someone to check my slides before this. Oh yeah, it doesn't. I just counted it again. So, clearly, feature 1 is the most important, right? It's the bigger must-have, if you will. But it is way more important than the second feature. It's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see the investment split, if you will. And what that helps for me to know is like, oh shit, feature 1's really, really important. And feature 2 is still important, but maybe we should put more thought into feature 1 than for feature 2. Some benefits and considerations. Like mentioned, gives you weighting rather than just pure ranking. I've actually worked with a dev who really liked this as well, and he liked to be part of the process for this too. The reason being is in the space that we worked with custom build and custom dev, we always had multiple ways to build something, right? It was either the quick and easy way to just get something done, or if it was something that we foresee in the product strategy to keep growing and growing, you'd probably build it differently and spend more technical effort on it. If they know that feature 1 is a 50 versus feature 5 being a 5, that really, really helped the dev in my team to figure out how strategically and technically we would build this thing. And it can be applied to many things. So in the previous one, right, I obviously used features, but I've used this before in a different lens, which worked really, really well, which was instead of features, it was pain points. So user pain points. I find it annoying to register for this thing. I had a list of pain points for the product owner, and I asked them, how much would you invest to solving this problem? Right, so instead of revealing the solutions, I showed them, here are the problems and the pain points that we gathered from the insights. How would you like to proceed with solving them based off the priorities? So you can apply this to many, many things and not just the feature level as well. A consideration which I haven't seen yet is, I think it might happen is you lose value if you have too many features. If you have 100 features, like what are you going to do at that point? But I have in the next slide a variation to this that you might find useful to know as well. So the variation is buying a feature. So instead of having no prices, you ask them, hey, you have $100, invest. You pre-price the features based on technical effort or whatever you think is relevant. So you work with your devs to figure out, hey, devs, what's the effort for building feature 1? It's quite high, whatever estimate methods you use versus feature 2 and feature 3. So you price it based off effort. And then you give them a budget that is less than the total. I'm not going to count it because clearly I'm terrible at maths, but you give them a number that is less than the total, which will force them to think about which ones can they not worry about or not to do in this project, right? It forces them to really, really prioritize based off value, and it considers technical effort as well. Cool. I haven't tried this yet, but something apparently in my research and prep for this is if you conduct this in a group, you could get people to combine their budgets and I have $60, Phil, you've got $60, can we work together to buy something? I've seen that as a potential workshop idea. And how it works is you'd price something higher, just an individual item, you'd price an individual item higher than the budget, meaning you have to work together to buy it. And the reason I think people do that is so that you can see really how important something is. So if someone decides to add, it means that thing's really, really important, right? That's the second tool that I'd have to share with you today. And the last one, which involves more math, so apologies if all my calculations are crazy incorrect, is persona-based scoring. So this is a tool for prioritization again, and to help alleviate some of the following things, which is somewhat repeated from the previous slides, but pressure to juggle needs. Which persona do we prioritize? And again, pressure to compare. Which one is really more of a must-have? And that might span between different personas as well. So what the persona-based scoring method looks like is this. It's a lot, but I'll walk through it. The first thing you do, so you list all your features, and you have columns per persona. The first thing you do is you assign weighting to each of your persona. And a way to do that is answering the question or asking the question, how much would you invest? Right, you can use the previous exercise as well for this, actually. How much would you invest to solving this persona's problems? And answering that question is probably a whole talk in itself. You could do that in multiple ways, right? You could say, you know, our population is 60% this persona, 40% that, then that's how you make that decision. But you could also go, sure, population, but we know that Persona 2's problems, if solved, would have a greater impact because right now it's really, really crap for them. So there's different ways to obviously assign those rankings, so those weightings. But what I've done here is just 40-60. And then once you have those rankings, what you do is you go through each feature and ask a question, does this hurt or help the persona? -1 is that it hurts them. 0, nothing, doesn't really affect them. +1, it helps them. And +2, it's critical for this persona. And number 3 is just you add it all up. So you go 40 times 1 plus 60 times 1 equals 100. And then you get a score, right? At the end of it, you have a score that is more methodical, if you will, rather than putting a product onto the spot and saying like, hey, which persona is more important right now? You've got this list of scores. And as mentioned before with the $100 investment, sure, you have the ranking, but again, you have weighting. So that really helps you in determining how much effort you spend building this product, building that feature, and how much you spend investing into it, essentially. So I've actually used this very recently at a client. The product owner came up to me with exactly this problem. It's like, we've got two personas that are so different to each other. How am I meant to prioritize, and how am I meant to decide, you know, this feature that really helps this persona, but might not really help the other one? How am I meant to decide what to do? And I worked with them to put this together, and it really, really helped being able to, I think his words were, it helped to remove the emotion out of it, just because it was numbers, right? You could just make those decisions based off those numbers. Benefits, gives you weighting, not just ranking, more objective and methodical, and can be changed. You're meant to revisit this as well. It's not meant to be a static thing just at the beginning. Could be time consuming to set up. Might become too stringent if you don't come back and change it. If you just do it at the beginning and you don't evolve it through time, that might be a bit risky, because obviously with editing, you should be adapting to change. And the last one, only focuses on user value, not business value. It's a consideration. So those plus ones, negative ones, whatever, it only considers how it impacts your user, right? So in the next one, what we've done is we can mix it up. You can add whatever you want to this matrix, right? So we still got persona 1, persona 2, but I've added goal 1 and goal 2. It could be business benefits, increase customer growth, improve satisfaction, any business benefits and business drivers. And similarly, you add those weightings to it, keep your persona 1, persona 2, and again, just add them all up at the end. So I've added here a business driver lens to it in addition to the user value, so you can have that bit of balance. But essentially, mix it up however you want. I've seen this done very, very differently for different circumstances and clients, but it's obviously customizable for your needs. Cool. So that brings me to my end, which is essentially, we started off with framing 3 challenges for a product owner to face, whether you are one yourself or you're working with one. And hopefully, out of these 3, you take something new today, or if you knew about these, then just a good reminder to use them. We've got the feature tree, we've got a $100 investment, and persona scoring. Thank you very much.